So, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. I seem to have got the post-lunch crowd a little bit sleepy and a little bit spare, so maybe some people will come in as we progress. But there are some familiar faces in here, so that makes me feel a little bit welcome. I am David Barlow. I represent a product here called Situate. Our exclusive UK partners for the product are the Cardinal Group, and we share very much in Jason's vision about pro-efficiency and how to take data from different technologies in the business and make better use of it. Interesting, the YouTube movie that Jason showed, I've seen that before, but to add a statistic to that, I was at the National Retail Federation exhibition in New York in January, and Oracle, perhaps the biggest database company in the world, were predicting then that by 2015 there will be twice as much data being generated by businesses as there was the capacity to store it. So think about that. You know, what's going to happen to all that data? How do people actually make use of it if there is so much data floating around the business? I also sort of reflecting on the theme, of course, is about loss prevention and retail fraud. I want to sort of broaden it out a little to talk about loss in not just criminal loss, but loss in terms of waste, loss in terms of inefficiency, loss in terms of lost labor time, and so on. Interestingly, one of the people who are our clients, one of the biggest Europe, in fact, the biggest retailer in France, when we first went to see them, we were talking to them about how to make better use of their security technologies. And the gentleman we were speaking to said, "I'm not really interested in that," which was a typically French dismissive statement to make. What he went on to say, however, was quite illuminating, because he said, "I lose more in a year in rotten tomatoes than I do in theft." And I think there's areas of process waste that could be considered as part of loss prevention if we can address those areas. That got us thinking about some things. And again, interesting from this morning, Martin Gill at the beginning talked about the conversation he'd been having about the skills that were required for people in loss prevention, and should they be business skills and loss prevention skills. And he said that the argument was won hands down by the business skills side of it. So that's interesting stuff. And certainly when I talk to people, I get the impression that people are now thinking that loss prevention is about the whole business and not just about actual theft, and that's where we come from in the whole equation. And working with Jason very closely and obviously the Amberstone team in terms of the execution of projects in the UK is quite an illuminating experience for us. So that's me. That's the subject for today. This is a quote I'd like to put in. Jason talks about unknown knowns and known unknowns. This gentleman, Mr. Rumsfeld, may go down in history for lots of things that people will not remember him fondly for. Maybe this will be his legacy, because this is a statement that will probably last for quite a long time. What we're about as Situate is to try to help any business uncover the things that are not known, because technology and data sits in silos, and we're looking at trying to find information across those silos, which turn up the known unknowns and perhaps identify some of the unknown unknowns. As we started working with that French retailer, they were quite horrified to discover how far wide of the process plan the reality of their business was in lots of areas. So those were sort of like unknown knowns. The agenda very quickly: what is Situate, what the analysts say, Metro Makro, and then the bit about the real-time Metro Makro store in action. We have obviously a lot of technology in business today, and I'll not read off that particularly, but one of the things I think is important is that a lot of technologies have improved over the years, including security technologies. So we now have lots of ways that technology talks about itself. So every piece of technology that you have in a retail environment will have some sort of client software which will report to you on exceptions and failures and so on, but it's always in the context of the technology. So you may hear me say this a couple of times, that technology talks about itself. The key thing on here is the amount of information that's available in a business environment and in a retail environment. And it's really overwhelming, the amount of data that's there. And not only is it overwhelming, it's typically distributed into departmental silos, so it's used by different people in different applications, possibly even in different parts of the country. You may have your, I don't know, your refrigeration systems monitored from a monitoring station in Scotland, your video systems monitored from a monitoring system in Leicester, your intrusion systems monitored from a monitoring system in Nottingham or whatever. All these things are distributed. Somewhere there's information in all of that, which if it could be popped out to you in real time would be of real benefit to you. Typically, the way that people address data at the moment is in this way. It's about big data, data aggregation. Let's bring it all into one place. Let's data warehouse it. Then we can ask questions of the data. We can prepare from that our weekly reports, our monthly reports, our quarterly reports. And then typically with physical technology, it's about systems integration. So these are how these things are approached at the moment. People bring all the technologies and all your security technologies under a security management supervisory software system and hope that somebody can actually watch all this continually changing data and get something of benefit out of it. And we see more extensions of the technology. Video analytics, for example, as an extension of video, producing actually some very useful information, but most of it looked at retrospectively as more data. PSIM, mapping workflows. And back to the thing about the technology talking about itself. If I may, I'm going to play you a short movie which talks a little bit more about what Situate is, and then we'll go closer to the actual case study from Makro. And for some reason, guys, can we get the movie to play? It did work in rehearsal. Technology, eh? I think we're nearly there. They say you should always rehearse for these things, but even this you can't rehearse for, can you? It worked in rehearsal. Well, if you can put the presentation back up, then we'll... I'm really sorry about this, ladies and gentlemen. Something a little bit beyond my control. Good.
Greatest technology was a continuous blackboard that went round, and so I've always been very, very careful about this. It's great. Yep.
Good, thank you. I actually did make a note about you when I was listening to your presentation, Joshua, and I decided you must have been working on a bet with somebody, the amount of times you tried to introduce sex into your presentation. I promised myself I wouldn't do the same, so forgive me for that.
No, it's fine. It's because I don't do it that I think about it all the time.
Well, it keeps you young, Joshua, doesn't it? Have we got a chance of getting it, Milos, do you think? while we're doing that, these were the slides I was going to refer to after the movie because they refer to the movie. So maybe... where we are. Sound?
Sensors such as RFID, GPS, building management and security technologies, and structured transactional data, supporting and defining routine and repetitive operations, typically presented. Let's look at what businesses have today.
From the beginning.
Too many video streams and too much fast-changing data from other real-world sensors, such as RFID, GPS, building management and security technologies, and structured transactional data, supporting and defining routine and repetitive operations, typically presented as retrospective and analytical ERP dashboards. Situate is business situations based on this real-world data and business ERP data. Thanks to video and other real-world sensors, we have the attributes of who, when, how long, etc., a mirror of the real-time reality of the daily business. Thanks to ERP, we understand the business impacts. Situate is a bridge between the transactional world and the real world, which is often volatile and often without repetitive patterns. The outputs are business situations, a complementary alternative to complex retrospective dashboards and technology control rooms. To deliver this, we have a 4-step model. Step 1. Based on what problem the enterprise wants to solve, we define the typical situations. Step 2. The logical parts are defined by business cases and by the user's experience and know-how. Step 3. We place a network of agents directly into the relevant data sources. Step 4. Situate pushes to you when the situation takes place. Only when all agents have found what they are looking for does the situation come to the business person's screen. Different situations mean different logic and different sources and different agents. In our business model, we have a library of situations for different business verticals with precisely defined motivations and problem descriptions. The why. We have business situations and scenarios with their key factors and their business implications, return on investment types and methods, and how to deliver to the business roles and users, and online situation demonstrations. We define the most valuable situations and their scenarios based on our customers' actual business structure, respective roles, and their functions. From these, we identify the required data sources, and we send our agents or reporters to collect the relevant data fragments. Together, we define the key performance indicators, who they should be delivered to and how, and the outcomes with their ROIs drive business and process change and co-creative development.
Thank you, guys.
Let's look at what businesses have today.
We need to go back to... Oh, here we are. So thank you guys for getting that going. I said all that without moving my lips there. A couple of things I'd like to pull out of that. Data falls into 2 formats, structured data, physical technologies, and what we're looking at is the challenges for those different types of data. Business information is typically used after the event retrospectively, and real-time sensing technologies are changing all the time. Video is a good example of that. The images are changing all the time. Video analytics are a good example of that. What video analytics are addressing is changing all the time, and it's how we then try to translate that into something meaningful for the business. And we believe that situations where we're looking at the business context around the technologies and around the business process is how to do that. So looking at what the outcomes you as a business are looking for to deliver that back to the business. And Jason said earlier on about making decisions based on facts. One of the key things in Situate is that what we're doing is we are measuring the reality of what's happening in a business process versus the theory of, or the plan of what's happening. Because every business has a plan, every business has processes that support that plan, and everyday circumstances overtake that plan. So we're looking at how that reality is actually being measured and how to give that back to people in order that they can make quick, meaningful decisions. Around all of that, a couple of things. Typically, in order to find the information and data to solve problems, you've got to go looking for it, and that's the pull methodology. We're actually trying to say to you, what is the outcome you're looking for? What is the situation you want? And when it occurs, we'll push it to you, so you don't have to go looking for it. I liken this in some way to perhaps even the internet, where if you want to search for something in Google from all those however many billion searches that occur every day, your words in your search bar are your data sources. So the smarter those words are, the better your search. So if you put 5-star hotels in London, you'll get a lot of answers. If you put 5-star hotels in West London, you'll get less. If you put 5-star hotels in Jermyn Street, you'll get 2, you know, and that's intelligent use of data sources. The difference being that with Situate, what we're saying is those are your data sources. When that combination of 2 5-star hotels in Jermyn Street comes up, we'll tell you, rather than you having to go looking for it. So it's pushed to you rather than pull. I just want to put this in here. We obviously are working with analysts in this sector. This is a comment from Boris Abelson, one of the key business intelligence analysts at Forrester Research, that he made about the product. Business intelligence is a much used and often abused term. It's been used quite a lot of times already today. Business intelligence means many from Microsoft is probably the most frequently used business intelligence tool, when what we want to try to do with business intelligence is to make it agile and actionable. So use the intelligence that you have about your business and the information your business generates to enable you to make quick and easy decisions. One of the things that Gartner have identified is the proliferation of technologies in a retail environment. This, again, is an extract from a report that they produced. This is not about us. This is just what they say. What they have identified is that technologies as disparate as security technologies, environmental technologies, POS technologies, et cetera, are used across a retail store. But at the moment, they're used in functional silos or application silos. And they believe there's a trend towards retailers looking at how to leverage the combinations of those technologies to produce information in a business environment. Hopefully, we'll look a bit at that in the Makro example in a moment. This is how we seem to have frozen. I'm so sorry about these technology glitches, gentlemen. Guys, we seem to have frozen the slideshow. There we go. This is a graphic description of how Gartner are addressing this. They're looking, as I say, at all the different technologies that they see being used in retail and some of the outcomes that could be generated if different combinations of these technologies were used. The only challenge I would have with this, which I take up with Gartner, is that, again, I'll reflect on something that Jason said in his presentation this morning, which is that some of the problems that people are going to university to learn about don't even exist yet, or by the time that they finish their training, what they were learning in year 1 will have been completely outdated. There is a problem with the way that we look at problems. Problem with the way we look at problems. There's a problem with that sentence too. There is a dichotomy here. We have new problems, and yet we're looking at old methodologies to address them. I think again, not wanting to say his name too often, but reflecting back on what Jason said this morning, we need to think differently about how we approach things, and that's one of the things that we're trying to do. So let's quickly talk about the Makro Group. You know the Makro Group, German company headquartered in Dusseldorf, have a number of brands in their portfolio. We're dealing with Metro, with Makro, and with Real in Europe. They are the largest player in their home market. Like most European retailers who are the largest player in their home market, that's probably their toughest market at the moment as well. But they're very well spread internationally. They are the 4th largest retailer in the world, measured by revenues. These are some of the things that we do with them. We look at, obviously, loss prevention technologies. We look at their systems and how the systems are used. We look at operational areas and customer service, and we look at some building control and energy management issues, and we've got some examples of this to come in the presentation here. Interesting one is that roof deflection. Not a problem that will ever occur here, but it's one I'll talk about for a few seconds. In parts of what is now Eastern Europe, the Ukraine and places like that, they have extremely heavy snowfalls in the winter because of the way that the climate is changing. And they have old buildings with roofs that tend to buckle under the weight of heavy snow. They actually had a roof collapse in one of their superstores in the Ukraine. Fortunately, there was nobody in it at the time. They want to be able to measure in real time the impact of this on the heavy snow on the building. So we've developed a situation for them using some laser technology inputs and the weather forecasting and so on, so we can predict if there's a risk of this likely to happen so that they can evacuate the stores. Just throw that one in as an interesting anecdote. So first 2 examples here about actually simple business rules. Essentially what Situate is it's a tool to create business rules from all of these different technologies. So we're not replacing what the technology does. You bought the technology for the purpose you bought it for, whether it's security systems technologies, refrigeration technologies, enterprise systems technologies, whatever. We're not saying that there's anything wrong with those technologies. You've made those sensible and sound investments. What we're doing is we're working across those technologies to look at business rules which interpret some of the actions in there. So I've got 2 very simple examples from the world of security here. The first business rule basically is about the customer entry, and the rule is very simple. You can see it there. Camera's not working, activity in the area, and that's triggered by the door opening, and it's after 10 o'clock. I need to know about it. And what you can see on the screen there is those are the images that should have been available of that customer entry area at 11:42. That's what was actually available to be seen, because and also that's what was able to be seen from the dome camera. The dome camera was supposed to be looking at the customer entry. In fact, it was pointed deliberately in the opposite direction. And this was because at 11:42, a security person, back to your point earlier on, Joshua, about staff being one of the largest contributors to crime in a retail environment, switched off the cameras, opened the door of the customer entry, and they were caught with 2,000 euros of goods on them. This particular employee had been working with the company for 6 years. They don't know how much he had taken over time, but it was the rule around the technologies that alerted them to catch him. The second example is, again, it's an internal issue. We have an area of the store that they call returned empties. It's next to where their sensitive stock is, and they have a simple rule about the fact that both of those doors should not be open at the same time. This is an example of how actually a business rule can build itself to predict that something may happen. An Amber Alert was generated in this instance, would be generated rather in this instance, because the first 2 things had happened. Both of those doors were opened at the same time. It becomes a red alert if the camera stopped functioning, and again, it was after 10 o'clock at night. So outside shop opening hours, but still before the store was actually closed. So here's the sequence of events. At 9:46, the door was opened. At 9:52, the returned empties door was opened, and an amber alert went to the store manager, or sorry, the loss prevention manager. And then just after 10 o'clock, the cameras were disconnected. The time then clicks in, it's after 10 o'clock, so a red alert goes. And the conclusion of this one was very simply that this group of internal workers were looking to commit a crime. It happened after 10 o'clock when the door should have been closed, but interestingly, before the intrusion system was armed. One of the things that that we use a lot in situations for the development of situations is technologies which may actually not be performing their normal function. Intrusion is a good one because intrusion systems are really only of interest to people when the system's armed. But those devices that are ubiquitous in a building are actually still awake and they can be interrogated for action, and that's what we did here. So the crime was prevented because of the business rule anticipating the violation. If we move on to another application, I'm basically looking at business rules as applications that sit on the Situate platform. So the same Situate technology or software is delivering these different applications to the business. This is about customer loyalty cards. They have a customer loyalty card program, and they're able to identify both the VIP customers or people that they want to get marketing information about. That information is logged in their card database, and with Situate, as those people enter the store, we pull that out and deliver the information to the relevant people. And the same, clearly there you have the gold and silver customers. The same data can also identify people who are flagged in their system as suspicious. They have situations where if they see that somebody, a particular card is used at the same checkout, or certainly with the same checkout operator, more than a certain number of times in a period of time, they consider that to be suspicious activity and they want to be aware of that. So we're highlighting that for them from those data sources. The information, and this is an example of how information can be communicated from Situate. The information can go to different people from the same event. So we have the different receptions at the different customer entry points. We have the security control room about suspicious customers, and of course we have marketing and customer relationship managers about VIP customers. So Mr. Cullerton, you know, next time you go into the shop, if you're about to spend your 10,000th pound this year, they will come and personally greet you, as it were. So we look on next to dynamic customer service. This is about taking, well, you can see the logic there. The logic builds up from the logic is what is behind the business rules. So you have the number of open tills, or rather the percentage of open tills. You have the status of the queues at those tills. You have the incremental customer change. So how many people are coming in to the store? Is it increasing or is it decreasing? We have the historical average shopping time it takes, average shopping time people spend before they get to the checkouts, and conversion rates. The data sources that support this are very simple. It's video analytic, which is actually one of the few video analytics we created because of the, and we did this because at a checkout, people counting based analytics are not accurate enough because they don't take into account whether it's two people with a trolley, two people with one basket, etc., etc. No matter how algorithmically complex they try to make that, it still isn't as accurate as we'd like it to be. And then the interpretation of events, which falls into those three categories, and the information is communicated to the person responsible for the area about how many tills they need to open and in what time frame, how many tills they can close and in what time frame, or actually the status is okay with the traffic that's in the store. This is how it looks if they interrogate it. The truth in terms of the application is that they would receive a message and they would act on this message. If they wanted to actually look what was behind the message, this is how the Makro interface looks. So you have the queue status in either green, amber, or red, and that's defined by them. Green may be one person in a queue, amber 2, red 3 or more, and so And then we've got the POS status itself. Is it open or is it closed? And then we've got the zone status, and this will be the message that that perhaps the store manager would get. If it's red, then there's a critical problem, for example. And then we've got the customer flow indicator, which is just an indication of whether that's increasing or decreasing in terms of the people coming in and out of the store. This is the feedback that they gave us on this. I'll not go through any of this in any detail. The most important thing for us in terms of this was the reliability and the accuracy of the technology. We're dealing with Germans here, so this was a critical measurement for us. There are two areas of return on investment for them here. One is about the reduction of the queues. Again, I won't go through all the stuff on here. There's some stuff on the right-hand side about the research that they've done in terms of how people don't return to shops or less frequently return to shops if they've had a bad experience with queuing. There's all sorts of statistics out there about that, ranging from 30% of all transactions are aborted because of queues, whatever. You know the experience in your own retail environments. One of the interesting things here is that even at the busiest periods of the year, Christmas and Easter, the reduction was continuous. So the actual length of queues by using this system was reduced by 2/3. The second return on investment is actually based on the idle time that they're able to reduce. In actual fact, this is the German example. The Czech Republic example is higher than this because the cost of labor is lower there. And they're able to reduce their headcount in this environment by 1.5 in Germany, but it's between 2 and 4 in former Eastern Europe, now Central Europe. Significant cost-saving opportunities. And from the table, it would appear that the amber is the ideal status. So green if there's nobody there, not particularly. Then we look at energy management. This is a very interesting application. We're using very simple, mostly security-based technologies to look at the process around the energy management in the refrigerated storage and the loading areas. Refrigerated storage, we understand in their environment, is about 70% of the cost of energy in their stores. Loading ramps, you'll see the image there of a loading ramp. Am I running out of time? I will start talking quicker. Okay. The door is open, there's no truck there. If the heating is on, they're heating the outside world. If the air conditioning is on, they're cooling the outside world. They have a whole table of how they created the return on investment on this. Anybody wants to ask me a question, I'll give you the exchange rate. What it works out as for them is that the actual return on investment for them in terms of this energy saving is around 18 months. Even if we only take 60% of those expected savings, it's still 26 months, and it equates to 7 to 9% of the total energy cost, which, if you go back to my statement a few moments ago, this being 70% of the cost of energy in their building equates to about 5% of the energy in a typical Metro, Makro hypermarket. It's quite a substantial saving for them. This is how the interface would look, illustrating here the fact that the recipients can be local management, they can be headquarters management, they can be regional management, different messages for different people. It's a very simple interface. You have the areas of business that you're interested in, just like your iPhone. There's a little icon in the corner with the number of incidents that have occurred since you last logged on. If you're not looking at live messages, you one click and you're in the description below it. I'd like to leave you then, almost finished, Joshua, with a couple of things here. These are statements that we have picked up from, again, from the researchers. The whole experience that people are looking for is changing. Jason talked about this in his presentation this morning, that it's about the customer experience as much as about anything else now. What we're also looking at is how the corporate customer can create their own business behaviors or situations. I'll talk more about that individually with anybody who wants to talk about it afterwards. And we believe that loss prevention actually is about profit protection, and maybe loss prevention would could benefit from a change of name into profit protection, because really that's what you guys are about protecting the profits and resources of a business. And then finally, it's about information to decision. It's about how quickly we can get the information you already have in your businesses. You already have all the data, you have all the technology. It's about how quickly we can get the pieces of that you need to use to enable you to make effective decisions. Finally, I'd like to say again that we work very closely with the Amberstone team and with the Cardinal team here in the UK. And we have a brief demonstration if anybody wants to have a look at it outside with Andy and Terry on the Amberstone team. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, David.